10 years ago, the U.S. economy suffered a near fatal heart attack. I'm talking about the housing crisis of 2008. When the housing market crashed in 2008, it shed 40% of its jobs. Unemployment went up to 10%, a level we haven't seen for decades. Over $1 trillion of wealth disappeared almost overnight. One of the largest banks in the country, Lehman Brothers, went bankrupt. The previous year, they had recorded record earnings of $4 billion. They employed almost 30,000 people, and in less than a year, all of that went away. It was, again, the equivalent of a near-death experience. There were three reasons why the housing market failed. First, it was an incredibly complex financial environment, so complex that most consumers didn't understand it, as well as most people on Wall Street didn't understand it. Secondly, it was predicated on an unsustainable trend. The housing industry was predicated on the trend that housing values would continue to increase every year at unsustainable rates. Finally, it was thought that housing could never fail. People will always pay their mortgages, won't they? That belief that it couldn't happen led to its failure. The reason why I talk about this is not to relive 10 years ago. It's to explain the fact that we are on the precipice of another heart attack. Only this one could be the widowmaker. This one is much bigger. This one involves healthcare, and healthcare is 3 times the size of the housing market. If healthcare ever fails and sheds 40% of its jobs, we'll lose 7.5 million jobs. That's more than the entire auto industry. If healthcare needs to get bailed out like the housing industry did, it would cost the federal government $2.5 trillion. That's not something we can do. It's simply not possible. The reason why I think healthcare is poised to have the same problem that the housing industry did is the same 3 factors are present. It's an incredibly complex financial environment with employer-based funding, fully insured, self-insured, the Affordable Care Act exchanges, Medicare, Medicaid, state government, federal government, you name it, it's complex. Nobody understands it. Secondly, it's predicated on an unsustainable position, inflation. Healthcare has been inflating at a rate that is not sustainable. It is the definition of unsustainable. In 1960, healthcare was only 5% of the U.S. economy, 1 out of every $20. Today, that number is rapidly approaching 1 out of every $5. At that pace, more than 1/3 of our entire economy will be spent on healthcare by the year 2060, and that simply can't happen. Finally, there is also a belief that healthcare can't fail. Healthcare can't possibly fail. That would be unprecedented. Well, ladies and gentlemen, everything is unprecedented until it happens for the first time. So if healthcare fails, if it goes the route of the housing industry, it may be unrecoverable. So why bring this up? Why scare everybody? Well, it's not just to add to the number of insomniacs in this country or to increase the sale of alcohol. It's because while I firmly believe we're on the brink of a catastrophic failure in healthcare, I also believe that it's not too late. I believe that we can fix this. Now, when I say we, I mean those of us that are in the industry and physicians, specifically physicians, because they have to be a part of the solution, and consumers. What I don't mean is the federal government or insurance companies. In my opinion, insurance companies and the federal government have shown that they either have a lack of desire or a lack of ability to fix this problem. If there's going to be a solution, it's going to come from us. Let's talk a little bit about solutions. Any solution we do is going to not be one magic bullet. It's going to be a number of things. We're going to have to change the way we pay physicians in hospitals. We're going to have to change the way we finance healthcare. We're going to have to make changes to the current insurance system, whether it's governmental or employer-based. Those changes are going to have to happen. But more importantly, we're going to have to deal with some very difficult truths. We're going to have to deal with rationing. That's right, I said the R word, rationing. Say it with me, it helps out. We're going to have to deal with rationing and the truth that we ration healthcare today, so does every other country, and we're going to ration it in the future. The question isn't, are we going to ration it? It's how, and how effectively. Now, I know at some point somebody right now is thinking, oh, Canada doesn't ration healthcare. Everybody has healthcare. Canada rations through access. We ration through income. Others ration through quality. The point is, it's going to happen. We have to deal with it and be adult about it. Rationing will occur. One of the examples that I use whenever anybody wants to get into the discussion about the R word is I describe an environment, it's happening today, where life-saving medical care is withheld from patients who need it. Patients with coverage, insurance coverage, and that care is withheld and those patients die. Where's that? That's not a third world country, that's here. That's our transplant system. We understand that there's a limited number of organs, and so we've developed a system to make sure that they do the most good for the most people. We're comfortable with that because we're comfortable with the idea that we can't make new organs. Well, there's no difference between organs and money. There's a limited amount of money, and we've got to figure out a way to use it for the most good for most people. Another truth that we're going to have to deal with is our current healthcare system can produce a lot more healthcare than we can afford. We're going to have to start dealing with ugly truths and difficult truths around value and deciding, does that medication, even though it's slightly better, is it worth the additional cost? How much are we willing to pay for another month of life expectancy or for certain symptoms to be slightly mitigated? Those are going to be very difficult truths and very hard realities, but if we're going to fix this, we're going to have to deal with them, and I think we can. Here's the bottom line to all of this. If we're going to have a solution to this, it's going to come from inside the industry and it's going to come from consumers. If we're going to have a solution to this, we're going to have to deal with difficult truths. We're going to have to deal with rationing. We're going to have to develop a new system. If we don't, well then let's just watch the crash, because it will happen. And I'll leave you with this. There's an old saying that truth is like poetry. Unfortunately, most people hate poetry. It's time to go ahead and appreciate poetry a little bit, deal with these truths, and fix this problem before it's too late. Thank you.